Okay, well, thanks so much, Megan. So as Megan said, we had the privilege of working with Bruce and his team at 5Points Creative to do a rebrand and our fancy new logo that you have hopefully seen in some of the materials that we have on our website and in our communications. And part of that work as we wrap it up is this social media workshop to help us focus on best practices. And so we expanded the invite list beyond just first steps, knowing that this is going to be good content for any nonprofit that we work with or really any business that we work with. So Kyle Draper, who is our kind of point person at 5Points, is going to introduce his team of folks, and I'll just let you guys take it away.
Okay, thanks, Jess. I'm glad that you still think of it as a privilege after struggling with that tagline. So, so anyway, thanks everyone for coming out. This is a subject that's very near and dear to our hearts, or especially mine. First off, just to let you know, Jess will be sharing with you a best practices document and the slides that we share with you today, so you don't feel like you have to take it all in. I know a lot of times I succumb to that pressure and I'm sitting here trying to take notes, so you don't have to worry about that. You'll have it all. Just try to absorb what you can as we go through. If you have any questions, just use the chat feature, and at the end I'll share those with our panelists and we'll get answers for you. And with that, let me introduce our panelists. First off is Chloe Leitner. She is first of all, she's a summa cum laude member of the Thundering Herd of Marshall. So we'll get a shout out to her all of her green friends there. But anyway, she manages all of our social media for 5Points, as well as that of our clients that choose us for social media management. And then also we have Bruce Bryan, if he will acknowledge, give a wave. Bruce is the principal at 5Points Creative. He's a James Madison Duke, and after an extensive background in TV, he started B2C Enterprises about 12 years ago. On March 16th of 2020, we moved to the 5Points area of Old Southwest Roanoke, and we decided to rebrand ourselves as the name of our community, as well as the 5 things that we do, which is advertising, branding, communications, digital, and marketing. And in case you guys remember that timeline, we moved into our new offices and then watched the world shut down. So if anybody ever needs tips about rebranding in a pandemic, we can help you out with that as well. But anyway, it was a fun time. The one thing that I want to let you to kind of focus on today is social media. I always like to tell our clients to think of it as a relationship. You know, once you get into it, you're pretty much committed, so you've got to do it, and then you get out of it whatever you put into it. So the more you invest, the more you'll get out of it. So with that being said, I will turn it over to Chloe. Bruce, did you want to get that picture now that it looks like everybody's logged on?
Yeah, that sounds great.
Okay, are you going to do that?
If they're willing to share their photograph, we're going to practice what we preach and take a photo that we can use on our social media, right? So if you're willing to share your screen for just like 30 seconds or a minute, the trade-off is we don't think we're going to need a whole hour, Megan. So, you know, we are thinking and hoping that you have some extra time, so we'll trade. Thanks for revealing yourselves. We appreciate it. Kyle, you want to do it or you want me to? You want to do it?
I'll let you do it, Bruce.
All right, then I'll jump on and do this real quick. I'm going to share it with Chloe, but we'll start here. So thanks, everybody. And 3, 2, 1. All right. I think I did it. Chloe, I did it. I'll be coming to you later this afternoon. Thanks, Kyle.
Awesome.
All right.
Awesome.
Thanks, Bruce. All right, Chloe, you ready to go?
I am. Okay. Okay. Shoot.
'Tis the way it goes.
Oh my goodness. Okay. I'm trying to click the button, but okay.
There we go.
So today I'm going to go over the 5 points of social media strategy that we advise our clients use, or just really anybody who is interested in starting to try to more efficiently manage their social media accounts, because managing your own social media account is a lot different than managing a business account, especially when you're working with multiple platforms. So we'll go through that, and we'll go through each of the platforms too. So our first point is to engage and inspire. One of the most important things on social media is just that you have to be social. You have to interact with your audience. It's super important, even if it's just commenting back on something. Like if somebody comments on your post, say thanks so and so for commenting on this, or if somebody visits the page, thank them for it. Like posts that you like. Another good idea is that pay attention to what's going on in your community. If you see something that's happening that your followers may be interested in, it could be a good idea to share it if you're associated with them, or even if it's something that you would be interested in yourself. People get on social media to discover new things, and they love when you're very community focused. It shows them that you're on pulse. That also includes that if you're doing something in the community, share that you're doing that. Don't just do it. If you're working at a food bank or something, if you're volunteering at a food bank with your business, post a picture of you guys working there. Or if you're having like a really cool meeting or event at your office, it's a good idea to share that too.
So, yeah, Chloe, one of the things that's interesting about that point is, as a nonprofit, I would encourage you all to look at the opposite. And that is, if you don't already, make sure you take some time to acknowledge your board members periodically, or to acknowledge your underwriters and your supporters. So that's one of the things that's happened with the nonprofit I run. Some of you may already know I run well, actually, I'm on the board with the Help Save the Next Girl Foundation, and also run the Spot on Kirk, which is a music venue in downtown Roanoke. And we have a handful of underwriters. We just try to rotate those thank yous, and don't say the same thing every time, but maybe take one of their posts and share it, or take a picture of their building and put it on your Facebook and thank them. Same with our board members. So I have 2 board members that have been with us since the very beginning, and they're cycling off later this month. So we're going to share that news with a picture of them. So making it personal for the people that are invested in you is a really great way to get a little bit of momentum behind your posts and your organization. And if you tell stories, Chloe's going to lead to this a little bit later on, but if you tell stories, pick out the little parts of those that are inspirational and use those tips or those content points to engage and communicate with the people that you're connected to. So one of the things that happens is, where growth comes with a social media audience is when other people start seeing what you put out and they share it with their followers. So that means if you're smart, like Chloe's saying, about tagging people and following up with people and including their information, even if back and forth you all support each other, you'd be amazed at how Facebook, for one, but also LinkedIn, can take what one of you shares, that 2 or 3 of you piggyback and share it, and you're all helping each other. It's that old saying about a rising tide. It will definitely help get more traction and visibility. And then the last thing is, I'm noticing LinkedIn is looking more and more like Facebook in regards to the types of things people share. So though it's more professional, don't be afraid to share some personal information, or some information that has a little bit of a personal angle to it as you go through with your LinkedIn content.
And invariably in my position as an account manager, I kind of oversee a lot of social media accounts. Chloe's actually the one that is kind of driving the the car, so to speak. But when I look at the analytics of it, local content by far has a greater engagement than anything else that they put on there, because by its nature, social media is just that. It's social, and people are looking for a way to connect with you on a personal basis. So the more of that information you can push out there, the better.
Right. Yeah, I've seen organically has an account with maybe just a couple hundred followers and might only get, say, 100 impressions organically. If it's a good post and it's shared and it's liked and it's commented on by your followers, I've seen organic results, number impressions in the thousands, just by doing those simple things. It can really boost or break your posting.
You mind if I
So-
ask a question before you move on?
Sure, go ahead.
And perhaps you're getting to this, so I apologize and get to it later if you are, but if you could give like an overview of just each platform and then what it's best for and best or the target audience or the audience that uses it the most, mostly because, and I think I'm also bringing this up on behalf of Jess, if we as a network have 1, 2, 3 platforms, but no dedicated social media staffing, prioritization would need to happen. Does that make sense? And
yes. So Facebook is a good platform just generally for all audiences. You can usually reach people like around 18 to 65 on Facebook. LinkedIn, you're going to want to tailor that more to your professional crowd. I would say mid-college level to retirement age, and that can shift a little bit. Instagram and Twitter are better for a like a younger crowd. I would say Instagram more so millennial, Gen X, Gen Z. Twitter maybe more millennials and Gen X.
And we
little
will,
bit different.
Chloe actually has a slide on that we'll be sharing with you. So we'll give it a little bit of context there, and then dive a little deeper on how those different platforms work. And we might want to share a couple secrets for how you can manage multiple platforms kind of at one time. So we use that as the marketing tease to help us get through some of the content. And then, Chloe, if you want to share your secrets with this crowd, you're welcome to.
Yeah, of course.
Well, and one of the interesting phenomena with that is it's been kind of interesting to watch. It's like adults have chased the kids to different media as things have gone. At first off, it was Facebook. Then as their parents got on, they went to Twitter. As their parents moved to Twitter, they went to Instagram. As the parents moved to Instagram, now we're seeing them go to Snapchat and TikTok. So that it's kind of interesting how the kids keep running as the parents try to chase them down and keep up on what they're posting. So anyway.
That's a really good way to look at it, Kyle. So our second point is mainly about boosting your posts and optimal times to post. I will say with this chart, you should take it with a grain of salt because even though this might be good for industry standards, you should always pay attention to your personal analytics on your Facebook and your Instagram pages to see when your followers are most active at. For example, most of our clients' followers are active between 3 p.m. and 6 p.m. So I probably would not post before noon. But if you have maybe like an older crowd, those morning posts will be okay because they'll be on Facebook as opposed to being at work. So it really is just heavily dependent on your audience. If you go onto Facebook, that you can easily access all of the analytics and check those out. And then investment.
I was just saying, I think it's a great chart and it's meant generally, but you're right, like every business is separate. And so, sorry, you're getting ready to talk about boosting, because that's one of the questions I get asked all the time. How should I boost? I don't know when to boost. I don't know how to boost. And so I love that you're going to address that.
Yeah. Like Bruce said, yeah, it is a good chart, and definitely this is something really awesome to start off with if you don't know when to post. I started off just posting kind of at these key times for clients, and then tailor it down when I discover when is good for their audience. But in terms of boosting, I always advise people to start off small with their investment. That could be anywhere from $25 to $50 a month. And then depending on the types of posts you're wanting to boost, or the frequency you want to go out, or the results you see, you can always up that budget. In fact, you can up a budget while your ad is running. So if you see that it's performing really well and you want to extend it, or you want to add a little bit more money per day, you can absolutely do that. And when you boost, you also get the option to kind of tailor down your audience. So you can pick things based on like age, location, their jobs, their interests. There's so many things that you can tailor this down to. You can do it even on like what they're browsing on the internet. So that, I think, is a really good tool for everybody to utilize. You should probably try to boost at least 1 to 2 posts a month, just so you're always in that circuit, you're always on the radar.
Yeah, and I think that the part that's interesting to me about this is even the smallest of businesses or the smallest of nonprofits could set aside $25 to $50. And that's what I would do. And then make it your kind of personal mission to find 1 or 2 posts that you really like and start with those, like Chloe said. And then if you're starting to get traction and seeing where it's helping you and you're picking up followers, or you're picking up more visibility, you can always beef it and do 2 or 4 posts, or boost one or so a week if you want. But start out small and make that commitment to do it. And if you don't even have $400 or $300 to be able to invest, that's where I would encourage you to find an underwriter and go to one of your board members and say, look, this is something we want to do, and we don't even have $350 to do this. Would you be willing to invest that money to help us test our social media boosting abilities in the coming 12 months? And I'll tell you what, we'll give you an extra shout out, maybe not tied to the money you're donating, but for your organization as well. That would be a separate topic, Megan. On the call with this are 2 other, at least when I saw earlier, 2 other 5-pointers. Megan Peterson, who's one of our graphic designers, is here, and CW Markham, who's an account lead like Kyle, is here. And CW actually has been in the development world for over a decade, has worked mostly in the cultural arts side of things. So he's used to helping people come up with money. He's also used to asking for money. So maybe another day that might be a conversation to have. But most of you can come up with $300 in a year. You won't even notice $25 a month. So that's where I encourage you to start. And like Chloe said, grow it from there.
And also back to the timing of these posts, that is huge. And it's also can work both in another way. I've worked with a couple of nonprofits with their managing their social media accounts, and occasionally they'll have disclaimers that they're required to put up for legal reasons. And so we'll always post those at like 4 o'clock on a Friday, because no one really wants to read it, but you want it to be there so that you can say, hey, we posted it. So it can work both ways, but most 90% of the time you want to post during times when people are going to be there.
Another important thing to remember about boosting posts is you always want to boost your content, not content from somebody else that you share, because just think of it as, would you pay for somebody else's advertising? Like if you write a post and it's like linking to an article that somebody else wrote, I wouldn't advise boosting that. Boost maybe something to get people to click through to your website. And actually, when you boost a post, you can choose what the goal of that ad is. And so the goal could be clicking through the website, or getting people to call you. It could have a call button on it. So you have a lot of options when it comes to boosting. Our third point is that you should try to build a relationship with your audience. To do this, you should focus on the rule that most of your posts, about 80%, should be something that is going to be relevant to your audience, that is not a hard sell. You can do a sales post, but I would regulate that to about 10%, 10 to 20% of the posts that go up, maybe 1 to 2 a month. No more than that. You can always do some sort of like soft sell in your post. Maybe like if you would like to schedule to come into the office, or if you know, something that isn't saying, hey, buy a product, hey, buy this service, come, like, you know, you should try to do stuff that your followers are going to want to see and that they're going to be interested in. Again, the whole point of social media is being social. So your posts should be things that your followers want to read and want to talk about outside of Facebook. Yep, that's pretty much that for that. Bruce, do you have anything to add?
It's interesting to me because one of the things that happens is it's counterintuitive. You think, I need to tell them about my event. I need to ask for money. I need to promote this board position. But if you think about it, and especially if you think about it in context of first steps, it's a network used to communicate a really important concept. So the more of communicating that concept work that you do, the more people are going to be interested in what you're doing. And the more interested they are in what you're doing, the more likely they will be to give, to participate, to join. So I think that ends up being a really important point. And I love what Kyle said earlier, you know, you're going to get out of it what you put into it, but don't think, oh, I'm a nonprofit, so you know, this doesn't apply. It's really still the same. I had a client that comes to mind, and the owner, he wanted to know where the sales were from social media. And we kept saying they're there, the connection's there, but first you have to build that connection and that relationship. And that's where it's really important. And the awareness that you're talking about, as you build that platform, it will make it so that people will want to engage with you over time.
And the big thing here that I always try to think about is think about yourself when you're surfing, when you're going through your feed. What do you like to consume? Do you like, you know, a lot of times you may block that one that's always constantly, or just ignore them, that one that's always trying to sell you something. But where there's content that you're going to be interested in, those are the ones that you tend to follow and pay attention to. So just keep that in mind as you're posting as well. What would I consume?
It can also help you with brand recognition and top of mind awareness and some of those things, so that when you slide that request or that call for action out, they're already familiar with you.
Yeah, and I can't help but interject here. Again, I'm CW Markham, and I've worked in fundraising for the past 30 years until the past 9 months. And so I know all of you are not-for-profit managers. Many of you are probably fundraisers. And I just have to say, it keeps occurring to me how many of the things we're talking about in the context of social media are exactly what we talk about in fundraising, in terms of it's all about relationship building. It's not just about the ask. And so I just think a lot of what we're talking about here, you're probably being reminded of how you cultivate, ask, and steward your donors. So just throw that in there.
Our next point is effective posting. So this is kind of where we'll talk about optimizing each post based on the platform you're on. Overall, you you do need to establish a tone for your social media. That way, it doesn't matter who's writing your post. It doesn't matter who's posting your post. You're always going to, it's always going to sound like it's coming from the same person, the same organization. If you wouldn't regularly use exclamation points in one post, don't use them in another.
Yeah.
So,
I'm sorry, Chloe, go ahead.
no, it's okay. Go ahead, Bruce.
That's kind of where you start to see what you were asking about earlier, Megan, that the content for Facebook is a little more drawn out, a little longer. Twitter's a quick hit. LinkedIn is more professional, and the information might at the core be the same, but the tools you use to share it are usually quite different. And it's really important that you think about that. And it doesn't take a lot of extra time, but you think about, again, like Chloe said with the last point, who's receiving this information? That's what's really important, because you want to pay attention to who's receiving it and share it in a way that it's going to be relevant to those people.
Right. So you can use, for example, I use a platform called Sendable to put all of my posts into, and I will have one overarching post that will go out to four different social media platforms. But I will go in through Sendable and I will personalize it for each platform. For example, a post that might have 600 characters is going to be fine for Facebook. But when I go into Twitter, I'm going to have to edit that down so it fits into their character count. And the same thing for Instagram. A post that might be relevant for Facebook that has a link is not going to work well on Instagram, because Instagram does not support links. So I wouldn't necessarily post that on Instagram. Business focused posts are great for LinkedIn, but maybe it's not so great for Twitter, and flip-flopping that, maybe a fun post shouldn't go on LinkedIn. It might not be appropriate to go on that platform.
So if you're going to do someone, you can test it on LinkedIn is a good thing to do every once in a while. So that can be something you can run some tests on your own to go through and do that as you desire, for sure.
Right, and this slide is just kind of detailing that. We kind of go through what performs best on each social media platform. For example, Facebook video and photos usually perform really well, and I always recommend that if you're going to post something on Facebook, never just do copy, always include a photo or a video. Even if you're posting a link, pull the image from that link or find a stock image that might go with it. On Instagram, it's more about your feed as a whole instead of just the one post. So try to establish an aesthetic look to your feed, so it doesn't look crazy and random all over the place. Like I said, links don't work on Instagram. You can put a link in your bio on Instagram, but usually that's just like the link to your website or something like that, so people can click to your website if they want to learn more. Like I said, LinkedIn, try to stick to things that are a little bit more business professional. And for Twitter, Twitter is a little bit more, you can post what you want. Links work well, photos work well, but evergreen content is pretty important for Twitter. And also Twitter is a great place for you to have a conversation with your followers. So like we talked about before, comment back if somebody says something to you on Twitter, or retweet something that might be relevant from another account, things like that.
Hey, Chloe, just interjecting for a minute, there were a couple of questions that came in the chat about Sendable. And I know at the foundation, we use Hootsuite as well for scheduling multiple posts. Could you, that might come later, but could you talk at some point about those tools in particular and what you would recommend?
Sure, I could talk about that now. So Hootsuite is another great platform that you can use. We only use Sendable because we manage so many different clients, and it's good for agency settings. But Hootsuite is absolutely a great choice, especially if you're doing this in-house. The one thing I would say is to pay attention if you're tagging somebody. You might have to go in and do that manually. I don't know if you can personalize it all together, but absolutely you could release each post separately through Hootsuite to personalize it.
So also I had the other point I was going to share in the last one, which fits in here, and I think may answer your question. Linda, sorry to Kyle kind of go around the chat feature. Kyle will gather these up and he'll ask any that we miss. But one of the things I want to encourage you as a general rule is think about watching the news, for example, or watching really almost any program, HGTV or at the Sports Center or the news. What the newscast does is during the newscast says, go to our website for more information. If you ever go to a media outlet's website, it says watch at 11 for this story. And so they're in a perpetual cycle of moving people from the website to the television station. And same, like if you're watching HGTV, they're like, go to our website to sign up for this and go to the website and it tells you what show's coming on that night. What I want to encourage you to do is get a platform for your website that allows you to put content on there so that you can put some videos up, so that you can put some blogs or some white papers or some stories or anything that you can put, and then share that information on your social media routinely with a link, so that way, Linda, it doesn't matter how long the video is because it's resting on Vimeo or it's resting on YouTube, and you're sharing that on your website, and what you're sharing in your post is a link to your website. So that means you can pretty much have unlimited length of video on there. And that's the nice shortcut. But more than that last shortcut, that is also using social media to build relationship, and then using social media to build web traffic. Then everybody knows, no matter the size of your organization or your nonprofit, the more web traffic you have, the more visible you are. The more visible you are, the more Google is going to send more people to your website. So you see how it all fits together there.
And then one thing too with that, Linda, is just try to keep your posts, even though it's unlimited, try to keep the videos relatively short. People aren't going to there to watch like an epic Titanic length video. That's one of the reasons why TikTok has been so successful. They limited how long the videos can be on there. And that's one reason is why, of course, you sit down on TikTok and, next thing you know, 2 hours has gone by, but during that time you watch like 500 videos, but you can get sucked into that. But just be careful about the length of what you post on there video wise.
Yeah, piggybacking on Kyle, the length is definitely super important. I see sometimes if we post long videos, the click-through rate might be at like 10 seconds or 3 seconds if they see that it's a really long video. So try to like stick to like 15 to 30 second spots if you can. Get the information out quick, concise. All right, so our fifth point, our last point, is curation and assessment. So when you are starting to tailor your social media calendar, you should probably decide on what kind of posts you want to put out. I usually choose anywhere from 5 to 9 different posts that I'm going to write for the month, like overarching topics, and then I'll choose a post for each type, and then I'll set it up in a calendar. That way your calendar is varied with content. You're not doing 2 event posts back to back. You might have a link one day, and then a couple days later you might have a picture from the office or something. You should try to mix your content up. Don't do things back to back. And it really is a great tool to do it in advance. That way that you're not scrambling last minute. Oh, what am I going to post? And even if you are kind of struggling for content, you can look back and you can say, oh, we haven't done a fun event posts in a while. And then you can put one of those in. You can insert that into your calendar.
Yeah, and
I would also,
I'm sorry, Chloe.
it's okay. I was going to move on to the next thing. So
Well,
you go ahead.
speaking of inserting into the calendar, I want to encourage you, Chloe's right, put 5 to 9 in for the month. But if something catches your eye or something happens, that's the cool part about social media is you can integrate that content into the plan. So if multiple people are involved with social media platform, you just make sure they're kind of speaking generally the same voice and not posting over top of each other, but everybody can have access to that calendar. In fact, I think one of the cool things you can do is share that calendar with your whole team so they sort of know what you're doing, and then they'll be on the lookout for things they can share or add to the calendar as well. That takes some of the pressure off. Then if something happens, like earlier today, I saw an image at our office. I'm like, oh, this is kind of cool. So I took the picture, and Chloe, I put it on a timer. So at 2:30, it's coming to you. And then Chloe she can put it in today. She could put it in next week. She could say, Bruce, that's a terrible idea. It doesn't really fit with what we're trying to do, and not put it in at all. But getting your whole team involved with that curation and scheduling it out does make it better.
Absolutely. I always try to leave at least a little bit of wiggle room in calendars to allow for, I call them on the fly posts. So if on your calendar you have everything written, maybe leave a space for, a couple Wednesdays from now, we don't really have any ideas. Maybe there's something going on. One of our members can send in something. For example, last week, Bruce and Kyle and one other person went to a golf event or something. And while they're there, they sent me a picture. Kyle sent me a picture, and that's like great content that I can put up to show, hey, look what we're doing. We're doing stuff in the community. Like, we're having fun with our job. So definitely leave room in your schedule for that kind of stuff. After you do that, periodically, you could do it quarterly, you could do it every 6 weeks. You should do a review of your analytics on Facebook, on Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, whatever you're active on, to see which of those posts are performing the best and which may not be performing very well. That way you can kind of alter what you're putting up, stuff that's maybe not as relevant that you thought would be relevant. You could cut that, or things that you thought were kind of boring may have blown up on your social media, and you can integrate more of those ideas into your calendar. I've seen where things that we thought, absolutely, this is a great idea, gets like 34 interactions, 34 impressions. And things that I kind of just like posted on a whim get 1,000 impressions. So leave time every so often to kind of conduct a review of all your social media accounts. I actually draw up a document for clients, so you could do that internally. That way you can reflect back and update every so often.
Yep.
So just to recap, you should establish a voice. You should find out what kind of content works for you, review that content, and then you should establish a posting schedule. And here we just have some of things that might be relevant for first steps, in terms of voice content and the schedule. You could alter this or come up with new ideas or delete things that might not work, just to tailor it down a little bit more.
Yep. And that's put in place just as a part of the document going forward for first steps, but it's going to be relevant for other organizations as well, I would think, as a general rule. Of course, specific information Results may vary.
Right.
Thank you for
Yeah.
this. I just read the, knowledgeable or new policy things. Child and family focused. It's definitely very helpful as we start these conversations. I didn't know that you guys were going to be providing this. So yay, thank you.
And
Are there-
then just our contact information at the end if you have any other questions after we do the questions after this.
Does anybody have any questions? And it's people have kind of voiced them as they were going through. Does anybody have any questions now?
Can you just go back to that slide in case I have any questions on the suggestions that come up immediately?
Sure, I can.
I think that would be good.
And of course, we're going to share this with you too.
Yeah.
But it might come up now. Let's see. So there's a lot of organizations that do like statewide policy and that sort of thing. When we're highlighting policy, would you recommend that it be a share of those organizations that are on the statewide level? Or do you feel that that sort of thing needs to come as new content? Because I feel like we can hit that hard just by sharing from a few of the key organizations.
You could absolutely share from them, or you could come up with some sort of like little graphic that you could turn into a series and post regularly. We do that with OSHA regulations for one client, and it seems to do pretty well. So it just depends on like what your image of it is, or you could do both. You could sprinkle in both of them into your posting schedule.
Yeah, we have a thing in our world called Good Type Tuesdays. And when we see a sign or a logo that we love, like maybe the new First Steps logo, on a Tuesday, we'll share that with a hashtag and all that. I think, Megan, what you'd want to look at is a mix of, just like Chloe said, some of that legislative content. But then if you become aware of an organization that's doing well, a company that's doing well in the NRV, shouting out individual companies that have good best practices is one of the best ways to get traction in your region.
Yeah, when you share content, sorry.
Do you think that might pit organizations against one another though, if one's highlighted over another when we're all trying to work together?
I meant business organizations.
Okay, so I get nonprofits.
Like
I think we're all trying to.
For example,
I'm
sorry.
Go ahead.
If you know that Torque has a great plan for employees, you might say, hey, here's an interesting way that they're handling some of the challenges with early childhood education, and share that. So, and then, again, if versus pitting organizations against each other, like you all are part of this network. And so the idea of the network is to lift everyone. So if one of you happens to have an event that is relevant to this, I think it's appropriate, especially if some of the leaders in the network say, yeah, this is something that affects all of us. If there's a health fair or a housing fair or something that's related to early childhood education that makes sense, I think it's appropriate to share that and try not to worry about, hey, I didn't get as many mentions as Chloe did, or how come Kyle got 2 posts and I got 1 or whatever. We're trying to look at it from a perspective of there's a bit of a beast that you have to feed with social media. And so you might be at times more aggressively looking for content than at other times.
Any other questions? Well, Chloe, one question that I get a lot is from different, not just businesses, but nonprofit, is how can the live features like Facebook Live, Instagram Live, how can those fit into your overall strategy?
So Instagram Live and Facebook Live would be good if you want to create like a weekly series or something that almost like, not like a little TV show, but something that's going to go out on the same time of each week so that people know when to tune in to maybe get like a tidbit of information. It's also useful if you're like at a live event you could be like, hey, we're down at the Berglund Center doing so-and-so today. Come by and check us out. Come say hi, something like that. It doesn't have to be totally formal. It can be informal like that too, but those are really good tools. I would also suggest, if you're really active on Instagram, utilizing the story function. That's a little bit more informal than a regular post too. You could just do like snap a photo, quick photo, add a hashtag, maybe like a little sticker or something on that. People love to click through stories. Like on my personal Instagram, I use my Instagram as like kind of an experimenting tool. And I've noticed that the more stories I post, the more followers I get. So that might be a good way to bump up your reach.
And Jess probably knows this already. I've been testing something since the beginning of the pandemic on LinkedIn. Though it's looking for education and you want to keep it very professional, I've noticed if you sneak in a smidge of vulnerability or a little bit of a personal angle on things, it seems to gain traction and people seem to pay more attention because they're tired of the very rote, just forwarded things, or hey, 10 things that make my nonprofit the best in the whole wide world. I mean, people are like, whatever. But if you say, here's 5 great things and 1 bad thing, what's that? And they might dig in and read a little bit more into it. So
your followers love to see the face behind the business. Absolutely. They don't want to feel like following you on social media is just part of your corporate machine. They want to feel like you're their friend.
Okay.
the other, Kyle, the other thing with video, which is where you started that, and I'm sorry that we kind of meandered a little bit. I've used it a couple of times for different organizations in an appeal manner, a direct appeal or an update. When we first closed the spot on Kirk, I sat on the stage and explained what was going on. And that was a way for me to address a group of people that were deeply interested in the music venue. And I could do it one time and it was getting hundreds, I think I might have gotten thousands of impressions. So I wouldn't always do that, don't overplay that, but besides live events or a regular check-in or a tip, that can also be another good way to share it. Now, the other thing you could do is if you have a new board member or you have a new sponsor, you could do a quick interview with them to let people get familiar with them. And then even better, if you can find a way to share that on your website and then take that and share it on your social media, that could work well down the road as well.
Yeah. You could sorry.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was just going to say that you could also use those Facebook Live functions to conduct something like a question and answer if there's a lot of, if you're getting like a lot of inbox questions. That way people can tune in and they can ask you questions live while you're talking, just to help out your audience. Just an idea.
And all I was going to say was, it's also a great way if you feel like you're going to lose your narrative in a crisis situation. It's a great way to go directly to people and beat the media. So you're telling your own story and someone's not telling it for you. A couple years ago, I don't know if you guys remember, Bob Rotans, who is the owner of Mac and Bob's, a restaurant here in Roanoke, was getting sued, or in Salem, was getting sued. And he is very, very media shy. And so he basically went on live, Facebook Live, and took 10 minutes just to tell his story. And it was very powerful. It went viral and it ended up saving his business. So stuff like that is when it can be a very good tool as well. Any other questions? All right. I think that's it, Jess. We're done. I think we promised by 2, and I think we got like 8 minutes to spare. So
yeah, if you're willing to give an extra 5 or so, I'd love it if you could just stay on briefly, because I feel like what we're talking about, you might have, and also some ideas about it specifically. Would that be all right?
Sure.
I promise it'll be 5. Maybe 7. Well, so here's where we're at. What I heard, we